racist, and you can't get rid of jurors for racial reasons, because that's totally cool. You can't do that, right? We have that rule. So it's a cool rule. So they had the rule, so we had to clear the jury out. We had to have a hearing about whether I was racist or not.
Whoa. So wait, how did you get out of it? How did you prove that you weren't racist?
I looked at the judge and I said, get the jurors out of here because we need to have a hearing now.
Well, what did you
And
say?
I said, and then we got the jurors out. I went, okay. I looked at the other judge, the lawyer, and I said, you better be sure about this, because if you're not, I'm coming after you. And the judge went, I agree with him, because he knew me. And he said, do you have any evidence at all other than what we've heard here? And he said, no. He said, then we're done. So guys, that was it. That's when I remember vividly, because I took that pretty poorly, as you might imagine, right? So, but my point is, I had two. I used the third one, and the only reason I used it was that guy would have decided against my client. So out he went. And he was a wonderful guy. He was an awesome guy. Seems like a guy I'd love to have a beer with. Off the jury you go. Go ahead.
When you pick out the jurors, like, do they know what the trial's going to be on? Because they wanted to get on the trial.
Yeah, we'll talk about this later. Yes, they do. They get told a little bit about what's going on.
We're just the only reason we're stopping you is because we're going to talk about that today.
There you go.
That's our next thing.
There you go. All right.
So let's go back to Mr. Peters and some final comments about him. Ryan?
I thought it was really good. It's kind of a very it's kind of a hard thing to get my head around, I guess, because there's a lot of moving parts he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was kind of interesting to see I guess his opinion on what it was like on the inside of a thing that we only really hear talked about from the outside.
Sure.
It was cool.
Okay. Good. And hopefully when we go down on the 17th of April, you'll get an even better view of what goes on in there.
Yeah, I hope you guys realize what you got. He's very open.
Yep.
About what he does. That was, I think, a good thing for you guys. Yeah.
Going off of what Ryan said, I think that, yeah, that was really cool to hear that from him, because he was you hear a lot of talk about the justice system today, but these are my opinions about it. I thought that was really cool to hear, just because we don't have nobody here has that viewpoint except for you. Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Cass? One thing that both he said and was in the reading, talking about jury selection and people that you do pick off the jury and smart people. It said getting rid of people who they view as being smart or people who are lawyers. Why would you get rid of those people?
The reason, in this very same case I was talking about, there was a woman who worked as a paralegal at a law firm.
That's all.
Okay? Now, in those kind of situations, you have to decide, is this the person who will decide for me or will they decide against me? Because if they'll decide for me, I want that person on jury. But you normally don't want them. The reason you don't want them is because instead of having jury deliberations like all of us maybe just throwing things in, they'll look to Colin Peters and they'll say, you're the lawyer. What should we do?
It just seems
And,
strange.
and that's, guys, we used to watch mock trials all the time where we'd present facts to a selected jury, and then we'd videotape them before we actually had the real trial to see how they deliberated. And if you do that kind of thing, that's exactly what they do. People will look to the expert in the room, and they'll go, so, Pastor, you're a lawyer. How should we read this? What does this evidence mean? And everything that comes down to a contested point gets decided by that person.
It just seems strange that you wouldn't want people who you see as smart being the ones who decide.
Well,
You don't want that for the other side because you want to win.
Well, yeah, and I also think that you got to be careful about people who are watching from the outside and who's somebody whose daughter, right, is the subject matter of this, what they think they're seeing, right? I wanted smart jurors because, for the most part, for me, smart jurors was the only way that I was going to ever win. Because if I had people who just went by what the bias was in the newspapers, I would have never won a case. I wanted people that would, think. because they had to think past the bias.
Okay, any other things about Colin?
Let's make sure you thank Ms. Robbins, because she set that up, because,
Alright, so the next thing that we're gonna talk about is the packet that I asked you to read, which was Justice by Dominic Dunn, and get some feedback about, what it was like for you reading through that packet. Yeah. Okay.
It's like,
I
all
was
right,
waiting for you.
here we go. By the way, I like the participation, guys. What do you think?
So I didn't like him.
Didn't like who?
The author.
Okay.
Oh, well, okay. You know what? I like that as a critique. Most people wouldn't have the guts to say that. Thank you.
I think it's just like in the beginning, it was he name dropped so many times.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
he
yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Well, that's Dominic Dunn for you.
I was like, hey, you're famous. Like, you don't need to.
He's a hot shot, right? That's what he's saying. He's a hot shot, right?
Oh,
He's a
yeah.
hot shot.
It seems like he's at point.
What's that?
Okay, well, me and Neha were talking about this.
Nice.
Earlier.
Outside of class?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
way to go home and have Mountain Dew and a bucket of chicken. Good grief. Way to go.
So, no, we were talking about it, and I don't agree with her because I
Let's
think
celebrate.
when he like says all those names, I think he's like establishing his credibility and saying that he really does like have this insight. Because the fact that he knows all these famous people and he's seen all this stuff, like I just think it's so compelling because now I know that he's like really invested in it. He can give like a unique insight on something that everyone like wonders about, you know?
I'm gonna read into that and say she says you're wrong. Okay, so make sure you get that. So Claire, call on somebody, all right? I'll let you guys call on somebody. Call on somebody else.
Can I call Neha again?
You can call on anybody you want. But let's try to make sure we get around the room. But go ahead, call on her.
Okay.
Let her respond now. You called her, you know, a
And
dirty
then
dog,
now when you're
a
ready
dirty
to
dog,
choose,
and
you're gonna
wrong.
choose somebody
Okay.
else. Okay. All right.
So my thing was that like, if you really are, if you have a reputation that like proves that you're credible, you shouldn't have to name drop that much. Like maybe a couple of times, but you don't need to establish your credibility and do that. It's like they say like when you're writing your college essays and stuff, you should like list out all your accomplishments. Like just focus on one thing. And that's kind of what he's doing. Like he's listing out all of his accomplishments, which is like it's too much. Because I feel like that makes him less credible. Julian?
Yeah, like I think there's a way for him to kind of establish credibility with the reader without name dropping like 20 famous people and saying, on this day I ate at this restaurant with this.
I was having
By the way, I love that you guys read this because sometimes you assign things to people and read, but you guys you're calling them out on
Yeah,
specific
he
things.
didn't
I
just
like
have to
that.
come out and flex on everybody. I'm better than
I like that.
Mia.
Yeah, I'm like just going off of that. I don't think that establishing credibility is talking about people that you know, unless it's like something like if you know like a victim like later in the, you know, how he has credibility when he's talking about the case, but like you can't just like say, oh, you know, like I'm big, I know these people, like it's just.
Okay, let me ask you two, because you two seem to be very critical of him, and also you two, Julian. Does that make you less open to his story?
Yes.
Wait,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. We have yes and no. Mia, why?
It's just that like you don't want to hear from somebody that you already think is arrogant and you know like just because like it's the personality that he's creating for himself. It's just not something that you really want to dig into that much. I mean, it was still interesting to see his point of view and everything, but I'm just saying that you're definitely less open to it because.
Yeah.
Oh no, she has to pick somebody.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Stop being the teacher.
I think my thing
Get
is,
duct tape.
like he's extremely biased, not only because he's the father, but also because like of his background and what he does. And I feel like he might have like embellished part of the story to make it more interesting for people to read, because it should be like one of his other big cases. Like that's what he's trying to make his daughter.
So you're saying a little bit he's selling a book.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
It sounds.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll pick somebody.
Well,
Brian.
Yeah, that was again what you mentioned, like him trying to sell his writing. I guess that was the thing I kind of noticed because it's like, again, it's a small case. It's not like the OJ case is not massively televised. The thing is,
big case to him.
it's a big case to him, but it wasn't big to everybody else. So I think he's trying. He's not. I don't know if I'd say that he's embellishing it, but he's writing it in such a way. He's just changing it in a way to make it matter to everyone else, which I think is, I mean, being biased.
Brian, say something.
Yeah, I agree with you that he's like embellishing stuff. A lot of stuff he says is like super dramatic. Like when he's talking.
Have you ever seen him talk, by the way?
No.
By the way, you'd be right. But go ahead. Don't you think, Ms. Robbins?
Yes.
He is super dramatic. But go ahead.
Yeah, like the way he writes people talking and the way he writes himself talking is just like, it's all like these short sentences and like zero hesitation or like ambiguousness.
Ambiguity?
Ambiguity is like people don't talk like that. I'm sorry.
Not to like call him out or anything, but why would a man named Dominic name his daughter Dominique?
Yes.
By the way, we've talked about this before. I think that's the greatest piece of evidence for what you guys are talking about.
That he's obsessed with himself.
He named a daughter after himself. Took his name and essentially feminized it to make a daughter's name, right? That'll tell you a lot.
It does, it does.
Tell you a lot.
After choose.
Oh, I don't know. So, first of all, I don't really like him that much because.
Wow, we're kind of dissing on Dominic. All right.
I mean, like, I'm going to give him that because, like, the way he writes about his daughter and like his last words that he said to her, like as his reference, like. You know,
Sean's laughing about it.
Yeah, it's like his new career. You think my new career path? Yeah, it was like you gave me your talents.
Yeah.
And that
So basically, he's building his career on his daughter's dead body.
Yeah, and
He's already established.
He was.
He was. Go ahead, Jenna.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry, excuse me, Jenna. One at a time. Go ahead.
I think that's pretty messed up. However, what I am going to do, I'm going to give him a pass for like his bias in the murder trial because his daughter was strangled. His daughter was strangled to death by some lunatic chef that has a history of beating women. I mean, who wouldn't write about it the way that he did? Like, I sure didn't like Sweetie, and I nearly screamed at a guy who tried to mug him because he looked like Sweetie. Of course he's going to do that. His daughter was strangled to death. Give the poor man a break.
Choose someone.
Choose someone.
Choose someone.
Calling people who haven't gone yet. You don't skip people.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying, I don't think it takes that much away from it when he's kind of name dropping all this stuff because, like, he's saying I'm this, and this, but I'm also a father. And so I think he has more credibility as a dad to cover this trial rather than, like, some hotshot law journalist. Because, I mean, it might be true that later he goes on to talk about all this, so maybe it's necessary for him to say all this. But he also says, yeah, I'm this girl's dad. Yeah, she was murdered by some psycho. And, like...
Well, wouldn't you get better coverage from somebody who wasn't the girl's dad?
I don't think so.
Would they care or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, this is... Oh, okay. Camille.
And going off what you said, I really this story really upset me just because of how unfair the trial was in my opinion. But I wish I would have read another story from the point of Sweetie and maybe his mom or someone on his side so I could really see. Because this made me hate him, but maybe another side from him that would make me feel better about especially his lawyer defending him.
Camille, I'm glad you brought that up because this is a point I wanted to make about him and about how you guys were already taking a look at him, right? You guys were already taking a look at him as if to determine his credibility, right? Even without us asking you to. Okay? Remember when Colin talked about there being dice rolls and stuff? That's what it is. It's not a dice roll in the sense of like, oh, the guy did or didn't do it. It's a dice roll in the sense of which people do I get that will think that that's him being self-aggrandizing and setting himself up as a big deal, right? Or who am I going to get? And he goes, but give me a break. It's his daughter. Yeah, my Jenna impersonation. Right? But you guys see my point?
Yeah.
Here's what's wonderful about what you guys did. You already walked into our Stories on Trial trap. You guys were already looking at how a story was being cast to determine right or wrong. And guys, if you don't think that it matters who delivers and how it's delivered, I got news for you. You just demonstrated that it does. Because before you started talking about the substance of it, what did we talk about?
The guy.
What's it look like? What's he look like? What's he doing? How's he acting? Right? That kind of stuff. I just want you to see that, to see the stories on trial thing. Guys, it's how you cast things, the story you tell leads to the result that you might end up getting. Okay? Go ahead.
Real, choose somebody.
I'm sorry, Camille, go ahead.
Okay, so first thing, what made me not like him wasn't so much the name dropping. It was there's a line on this page 7. It says, "At that moment, I entered the story and became a part of it," talking about another big trial. Bad journalism. Journalists say, "So what?" I say back, and I'm like, there's a reason why it's bad journalism. You're getting caught up in the story, and saying "so what" to that made me feel pretty iffy about him. And then on the first page of Justice, so the actual article, he's talking about his ex-wife. And
All right, let's just stop with that comment right there. Before she makes her comment,
He calls
let's
her
let that build her.
Mrs. still?
And you're addressing her as Mrs. Edwards Dunn rather than Mrs. Dominic Dunn. And I'm like, I hate that practice. And he's like, you would call your wife by your name is just like, she's a person. And like using that to symbolize like them being married and them being not married, and like he's still like got respect for her and everything, and I'm just like, no BS. But I'd say,
And that's a generational piece too.
It is, yeah. This
That's
is
that's a huge
big
generational
generational
piece.
This is like,
I wish you would have stayed
Be
married.
careful about that now.
but she's
Careful about old stuff.
Like what generation I was wondering.
You named her daughter Dominic.
Within the trial, though, what got me is just knowing the statistics about people who do domestic abuse and knowing statistics about that kind of thing. That's what really convinced me about, like, I don't think that went the right way. The trial didn't go the right way, because if he abused all these other women, then I really do believe that he would have done that to another one.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I watched this episode of Scandal. Oh god.
All right. Well, there we go. We're already in real life. But go ahead.
This episode of Scandal.
There was this thing where like the judge, they thought that the judge was biased, and so they went to someone, and then they were like, "Oh, this is a very serious claim. Like, we want to like remove a judge from a case. Like, can you do that?"
Absolutely.
So why didn't they go and report and say like?
I don't know why they didn't go. Okay. Number one, Colin kept mentioning the legal ethics, right? Lawyers have a code of ethics they have to follow. Judges, because they're typically lawyers, also have to follow that same code of ethics, but they also have to follow their own set of judicial ethics, all right? And judicial ethics requires you to remove yourself from a case in which you are biased, okay? Which you've got a claim, which you cannot make a fair, you can't give somebody a fair shake, right? You're supposed to recuse yourself. If you don't recuse yourself, somebody else can make a motion for you to get kicked out. A lawyer can do that. Of course, the problem with that is, if the judge says no, you're now stuck with being the guy who has to get rid of this guy, and now he's going to decide your client's fate.
So you have to ask the judge to remove himself.
Yes.
So it's his choice if he does or not.
That's his choice if he does. Now here's the thing though, once you ask the judge and he says no, we're gonna talk about this later, you've effectively just put a little, what I call a little reminder pin in the record. Whenever you object, you're putting a reminder pin in the record, you're saying, okay, here's something I might come back to later and say was an error in the way that this was decided. Now, so let's imagine that you asked to have me recused as a judge, right? So what is happening is your client, let's imagine your client loses, okay? Your client loses. Now on appeal, you say, okay, this is grounds for error. This is grounds to overturn the case because the judge who was on it should not have been there. Okay, so here's the thing about law that this is one of the things that's why I'm saying be careful before you see the whole system, what you think about it, right? Well, one of the things I really like about it is the fact that you get to put that pin in, and then you can come back to it later, and it's not the same judge. It's a different judge. Somebody who's higher up usually, okay? class?
So what can you do in this situation? Because the judge is doing things that are like, it's not super gray. I mean, it's like the thing he did where he eliminated all the evidence from like Dominique's agents. Yeah, he agreed that statements made by Dominique to her agent, her fellow actors, and her friends regarding her fear of John were inadmissible because they're hearsay.
Yes.
I looked it up, and that's just like
Hearsay is an interesting rule we're going to
it's
go
just
over.
not true though.
No, it is.
Because-
Well, it is. Hearsay is inadmissible.
Hearsay is a thing, but one of the exceptions to that is that if it's something that's, I don't remember the legal name of it, but if it's like something you're feeling, or if you're
It's called a present sense impression.
present sense impression,
Right.
which is something that like only you would possibly know. For example, I'm scared of John Sweeney. Like that's admissible. Like this, like it's,
Well, but
it's
here's
in the law.
where judgment comes in, right? The judge has got to decide in any decision, all right? And in this one, we've got the hearsay rule, right? It's a statement out of court made by somebody who who's trying to prove the truth of the matter asserted, right? So trying to prove that fact, okay? So it's out of court statement. Typically, we don't allow those in. Why? Unless you come and testify. Why am I not going to allow you to tell me what Cameron said?
Because I might be wrong.
Yeah. If I want to know what Cameron said, guess what I should do? Let's ask Cameron, right? So this is a best evidence rule, right? There are exceptions to hearsay, as you said. One of them would be present sense impression, but like any in a present sense impression is, oh my God, don't drop that on me, Cameron. Okay, that it's like like somebody heard from another room. This happened, and then they go in and they find that there's a refrigerator on top of somebody. Okay.
Cameron's so strong he picked up a refrigerator.
And Cameron's not there anymore. We don't know that Cameron was in the room,
Right.
but we're trying to prove he was by saying somebody yelled, and it sounded like Ms. Robbins' voice, before she said, Cameron, don't drop the refrigerator out, and that's it. So we're gonna allow that, and because there's a reason to believe that it's credible, right?
Yeah.
Here's what I don't know, and this is the thing that bothers me about this article and all we have, is this. I'm hearing, it's your problem, I'm hearing Dominic Dunn say. I don't have the transcript in front of me, I don't have the rules he was using, I don't have the decisions that the judicial decisions he's basing it on. And so I'm not saying you're not right, what I'm saying is,
Can you get the
Well, what do you
transcript?
I would like to see the whole thing.
But so the thing is, I don't think you can appeal a criminal case, can you?
You
So
can,
what do you-
absolutely.
If you're guilty,
Why
yes.
What about double jeopardy then?
No, if you're
If you're
guilty,
guilty, you
can
can.
appeal. If
If
they're
you're guilty-
innocent, you're done.
If you're innocent, you're done.
That's just
You're done. There's limited circumstances where they can bring you back, but usually you're done.
So a perfect example of that is what we talked about with the OJ case, right? It was a criminal trial. He was found innocent. He's done. They can't go back and go, oh, we're going to try him again for these same crimes, but they could try him in the civil court
Right.
because it's a different court completely. If they had new charges or brought new evidence that was later discovered, they could go back and try and charge him again based on new evidence. But they
Right.
can't just do the exact same trial again because they want to, if he is innocent.
So Sean, if it's laid out exactly as Dominic Dunn says, right,
Yeah, like
then I get your point. But there's enough of me that's a little bit of Camille that goes,
What's the other side to?
I want, this is a judge in a big court in a case that's getting watched, I might add. This is, Dominic Dunn's daughter is going to get some press, right? So there's a reporter in this. Some people are watching. So I'm not saying that you're not right. I'm saying, okay, I want to see the whole thing.
But like, if a judge does something that's illegal in your case, you're just done.
No. You can appeal.
Not if
And
you
so, well, there's two things you can do. You can appeal, all right?
That's what I'm confused about.
Well, that's what I'm trying to fix for you, okay? So if it's a problem with your client, let's imagine this is Ms. Robbins, right? And Ms. Robbins gets treated poorly or loses because of the judge, right? I can appeal that at the next level, all right? There's one other thing I can do, and that's I can file a complaint. I can file a complaint with the State Bar Association, and I can say that guy needs to be put off the bench. or punished in some way because he acted contrary to judicial ethics. I can do that. You see? So there's just because this case doesn't go the way you need to, doesn't mean that guy stays around if he's that bad. And by the way, usually judges like that you can have a bad judge or two. Lawyers don't like judges that are bad because it's bad for business, and so they will speak up.
Take these last two comments, and then we're going to move on to the next
I
thing.
should go back.
Oh, yes, you can go with that. So these last two comments. Go ahead.
Oh, never mind. Actually,
Okay,
answers the
John.
question.
The question I had was, it's on page 22, and it said, like, if any member of the Dunn family cries out, rolls his eyes, or exclaims in any way, he's allowed to leave the courtroom. And then it got me thinking about, like, other things, like Lenny, who is confined to a wheelchair. She's not allowed to be in a wheelchair, because that can bring sympathy to their case, or, like, anything that could make the Dunn family sympathetic to the audience, to jury. They'll have to, like, smash that out. But, like, Sweeney is allowed to walk in with a Bible and, like, a fancy jacket.
Because he's on trial.
Because he's on trial. But
He's on trial.
so he's
The,
allowed
the Dunns aren't going to lose their
Right.
Dunns aren't going to lose their liberty. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
You got to remember the way that the way that we slant our table. Okay, we slant our judicial table to the fact that you're innocent. Now a lot of people don't like that, and I get it, but that's the way it's slanted. It's slanted towards you're innocent, and we're going to give you every shot to prove that. Now, one of the ways we do that is make sure that this is a business-like place, right? So here's the argument that lawyers make, right? Him walking in with his Bible, he's just doing that quietly, people get a watch, and it's not interrupting the court. The Dunns screaming out, yelling, crying, makes it hard to actually have a trial.
Okay.
That's the argument. I'm not saying it's right. What I'm saying is there's lots of different ways to look at this, right? But our table slants, our judicial table slants toward, all right, we're going to help this guy over here, not help. We're going to make sure that it's slanted so that if we prove that he's guilty, that guy's really guilty.
Okay.
That's how we slant it. Now, of course, it's never going to be 100% right, and that's the thing that people need to remember is this is a judicial system our judicial system is for our society.
And one more question. I can't find a page, but when the defense, sorry, I can't speak English.
The defense?
The defense guy, he goes around and he starts, like, acting out, and he pretends to be Dominique, and he's like, I lied to you, sweetie, I never loved, like, is that allowed? Even, like, 'cause
It's
that's
allowed
not
to the extent that the judge will allow it and that the other lawyer will not object and get it done.
Okay, so
Okay,
the
a
judge
lot of this has
applies
to do with
the first
lawyering.
ones. Okay.
And also, again, a lot of it has to do with things you didn't see. For instance, you guys don't know what the pretrial hearings were like, where there was nobody else. You don't know that judge. What you don't know is that judge had to squash this other lawyer, who you want to speak up and defend people. You don't know that guy may have been a jerk.
Okay.
Okay, you don't know. We don't know. Okay, without making excuses for you, just don't know all that went on. So I'm I'm Camille on this, and I want to know
Yeah.
the whole thing. I don't want to know his thing. I want to know the whole thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about trial roles next. Do you need to write on the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Did we need to finish the court?
What? No,
Did
we finished the
we
court.
finished court stuff?
We finished the
Okay.
court stuff, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we wrote down all that. We made it all the way up to the Supreme Court.
So the purpose of this, Ms. Robbins, is just to get them to the point where they can do what?
So the purpose to this is for your homework assignment, which is due on Monday, which is on there across, but also up there. You need to type out your top 3 roles that you would like to play in the trial.
In order, right?
In order, 1, 2, and 3. And for the first one, for your number 1 choice, you need to have a short paragraph that explains why you want that first choice. Okay? You're going to type it, print it, hand it into us. Hand it into us, not Dropbox, hand it into us on Monday. Then Mr. Hanson and I will go and look over everything, and we'll make a determination of who's playing what during the trial. Got it? Okay.
All right. If I
So
forget
these
something,
trial
I'm going to
roles,
say something.
yeah,
you
that's why
you
we're doing the
remind me,
trial.
right?
Yep.
Okay, so roles you're going to play. You're going to tell us what you're interested in doing. and we're going to align it. I'm not going to say as best we can, because sometimes Ms. Robbins and I like to put people on the opposite side of where they want to be, because we don't want them comfortable. Some of the greatest learning happens when you are not comfortable.
We never want you to be comfortable.
I don't ever want you to be comfortable. So, judge. It's important to keep in mind what a judge's role is. What is it? What's a judge's role? What is a judge supposed to do? Is this what you want, Ms. Robbins? This is what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Judge's role. Yeah.
Keep things moving.
Oh my God, she got it. First try. Guys, a judge's job for the most part is to get this thing done. Whatever this thing is. Judges have tremendously large dockets. You guys are going to go down to the muni court and you're going to see, oh my God, all the business they got to do, right? The last thing a judge wants, guess what the last thing he wants is, or she wants?
A long trial.
A trial.
Oh man.
Trial, period.
Period. Trials take days or hours at the least, but days. Sometimes they take weeks. Those are the rare ones. They take days. And what they do is they just kill a judge's schedule. They make it impossible for a judge to do his thing. What I want you guys to realize when you're looking at these roles, I want you to consider the role from their perspective. The judge, does the judge want justice?
Yeah.
Yes, but also the judge has a job. Who here has been a student? Are there times when you do the work just so you can get it done?
Yes.
Guess what? Judges are no different. And there are time limits on judges. We're going to look at things from solely the criminal aspect. I'll point out some civil stuff to you because that's my expertise. But in the criminal side, what's the main constraint? What's the main constraint, time-wise, on a trial in a criminal case? What's every defendant got a right to?
Fair trial.
A fair trial and a
Speedy trial.
speedy trial. Okay? If the defendant wants a trial, speedy trial typically has come to mean basically about 90 days. If you want to be tried, you're going to be tried in about 90 days. Now, sometimes criminal defendants don't want to be tried quickly. They want to have a lot of time to gather evidence. So they will waive or get rid of their right to a speedy trial. They can do that. But a judge has to move things along so that they get to their trial within 90 days. Guys, there's a lot of crime out there. There's a lot of crime out there. So the judge is moving things through. The last thing he wants is trial. So I want you to consider that. The judge is coordinating the trial. The judge is kind of Mr. Glover. Right? What do you say, Ms. Roberts?
Director.
He's the director.
Yeah.
He's the director. He's not going to act. He's not going to act. He's not going to stand out in the audience. What he's going to do is he's going to make sure that the trains run on time. He's going to make sure that things get done that need to get done. And oh, by the way, what he's going to do the whole time, lawyers, is he's going to push you to reach a decision without him having to make a decision or her having to make a decision. Why? Why does the judge want you, in a criminal case, in a criminal context, we'll talk about it, why does the judge want you, lawyers, to work out a plea bargain? Claire. It's less work, but let's get to why it's less work. There's no trial, which means what? What can't the judge be if there's no trial? Go ahead, Todd.
Can't be like the bad guy in it.
Well, not the bad guy. He can't be.
Like
What's the thing? What is the judge concerned about? So let's imagine we have a trial.
He has to be impartial.
Yes, because what you guys just talked about this judge in this case. Because what can you do if the judge isn't fair?
Lose.
Throw them out.
You can appeal his case and make it look like he made a mistake. The last thing a judge wants is to have a case that he decided get thrown back at him again because he made a mistake. So instead of having you guys argue about the mistakes you make, what a judge says is, if you guys will agree to a plea bargain, guess who made no decision? The judge. Judge doesn't get to make a mistake. And he gets two things he wants. I make no mistakes, and on to the next case. Now, I'm simplifying it, but I'm not too much. Now, you're gonna get to meet one of the finest judges I've ever met, and that's Judge Tyak. I agree with Mr. Peters. He's a great guy, okay? And he cares about people. But he also understands, he'll admit to you. Remember, right, Mr. Robbins? He's got peeps, and he's got cases to take care of. Guys, remember, judges have fun things to do. They have the case in front of them that they have to make sure is fair. But who else do they have to be fair to? Themselves? Who else? They have to be fair to the people that are in the courtroom. They have to be fair to the lawyers. They have to be fair to themselves. Who else they got to be fair to?
People waiting for their trial.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Here's why. Remember, talk about criminal and civil. Who's the wrong against in a criminal trial?
State.
It's against the people. The judge has to worry about all of us. That means not just this case. You've got to worry that all these other cases get to be heard too, and they get to be heard relatively fairly. So he can't be concentrating way too much on this one. Because if he spends way too much on this one, these other 5 over here are getting ignored. Guys, this is a really tough job. And it's really tough in this school. So, Ms. Robbins, you want me to work into things about the one here, right?
Yep.
Here, guys, what you'll have to do is you'll have to make sure that the witnesses are on time. You'll have to make sure that that all the lawyers know what order they're calling witnesses in. You'll have to make sure that the next day we know exactly how many witnesses are going to have to be ready. And you'll have to, you guys are schedulers. And you're also pushers. Like you keep pushing people. Come on. Don't dawdle. Let's just do it. Let's go. We got business. Because we are going to have a limited time trial too. We're not going to give you the whole trimester. They get 2 weeks, right, Ms. Robbins?
That's correct. Which is not really 2 weeks.
Nope.
It's about 4 or 5 days.
It's 4 or 5 days of class. And so what you guys get. Yeah,
Of an 80-minute class.
One of the other reasons I like our trial is you guys get a realistic sense of this. The judge has got to be moving, and guess who makes sure that he'll be viewing it that way? Me. And her. We'll be moving them, man. We'll be moving. So I'll say things to the judge like, hey, these judges, the lawyers work for you. So the judge is there for everybody, but he's mainly concerned about keeping this thing moving, not just so we can be fair in this case, guys, but so they can be fair to the whole society, so that we get a lot of cases heard, because there's a lot going on. Is there anything else to add?
Nope, that's
And you have a question about that? That's kind of the judge's role. Yes, ma'am.
How much do judges get paid? Like, do we get
In our class, nothing.
You'd be shocked at the amount that judges get paid in relation to what, for instance, a good corporate lawyer or a good criminal lawyer would pay. Okay, let's look it up, guys. Online, somebody look up salary of a municipal court judge in Ohio.
In Ohio.
Okay. And then I'll tell you some other things about some numbers if you want to know. Okay. Is that all right? Is that right? Yeah. Go ahead.
Does whether we're going to France or Barcelona impact what?
No.
No.
Because we're going to be gone. You missed the first of it. We're going to France
Okay.
too.
We're on France.
Oh.
Remember, we're stalking you to France.
I got a whole chart and everything.
I figured you would.
Like Chief Justice, normal. I guess this one just says.
That's Supreme Court judge.
bad.
Chief Justice.
Wait, I can't wait to hear the number. Then I'll tell you about not bad.
Supreme Court of Ohio.
Right.
Okay.
That's Supreme for the Chief Justice in 2019. It was 183,000.
I'm sorry. Let me laugh
Well,
about
what's
that.
finance make the point?
I'm sorry. I think that's funny.
I read it right, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
I think that's funny.
He's not laughing at you.
Somebody ask me why. Somebody why I think that's. Ask me why I think that's funny. Ask me. Please. Somebody ask me why I think that's
What's it
funny.
funny?
Why is it funny?
Okay, let me give you a little example. Right, 20 years ago, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and wheels made out of rocks, I was a lawyer. Okay, my last year in practice was 1999. My last year as a lawyer, and I just finished my 9th and I was into my 10th year, guys. I'm going to tell you what I got paid. You ready? I got paid $85,000.
20 years ago.
20 years ago, as a base salary.
Julian, do the math, please.
Yeah.
I got that year. I got $15,000 as a bonus because I was good at what I did. I wasn't a partner in a firm yet. I was just a guy who was a worker bee. $100,000.
85,000.
And what's inflation? What's inflation been since
It's- it's-
1990?
What was last year you were in?
1999. That's the last year I worked. 2000 is when I started teaching.
2018.
And guys, I'm not. This isn't bragging. I want you guys to know what things.
Right.
130,000.
What would he have made today, Julian?
Wait.
It's 130,000
Yeah.
in today's stuff.
Yeah. That's why. Yes.
Whoa.
So I want.
And it only is 9th or 10th year of practice.
Now, when I left 20 years ago, when I left, partners were making at a minimum in the firm I was working at. Partners would make between $150,000 to $200,000 first year as a partner. That's like your 9th or 10th year in. Now, as you go on, a partner means that you are a part owner of the business, so that means you get part of the profits if your firm's a good firm and you make money. And every year you go up.
What'd you
Now,
look up, Julian?
100 grand.
Yeah.
Which is?
150 grand
Today.
Yeah.
today.
Okay. And the Supreme Court Chief Justice in Ohio makes
This year, well, he's using 2018, so 2018 would be 174.
yeah.
Whoa.
Guys.
And the number of years you need to practice and then be a Supreme Court justice?
And I hate to say this, and I don't mean to sound. This is not me sounding crass because I'm just not sounding crass. But in the world that I ran in, that is not that much. I hate to say it. You know, I mean, Ms. Robinson, am I being?
You're not wrong. I was just gonna
What-
say, you mean you
look
don't make
up
that
now.
well?
Look up now. I want to know now. What's a partner? And this is one of the greatest firms in Ohio and in the world. Look up what a partner at Jones Day, Revis and Pogue makes.
I'm guessing
Typical.
Today.
Typical is 400,000. Partner salaries range from 300,000 and almost 100 to almost.
Is that Jones Day or just everywhere?
Don't say.
Jones Day. Jones Day is one of the premier firms in the United States. Jones Day is one of the premier firms in the world. Jones Day, and that's an average partner salary. That's
Yeah,
not.
it ranges from 300,000 to $1 million.
A year.
A million?
Yeah.
A year. Wow. I can take a lot of trips.
What's that?
You're working a lot.
I can teach so much.
Yeah.
more.
I'll be happy to talk to you guys sometime about what hours were involved. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're working a lot. But you know what, guys? Here's the reality of it. I'm not working any less now than I did before.
Really?
No.
Oh, no.
No.
Whoa, that's crazy.
It's not crazy.
It's not about
It's whatever somebody wants. And I don't bring that up, guys, to talk about. Oh, look, she knows me. That's not. I want you guys. The mere fact that you all went, you should know what people get paid.
Yeah, you should.
By the way, what's the president of the United States get paid?
350 grand.
No, like 400 at least. Go ahead.
I thought it was 3.
No. It used to be 400. I'm forgetting if they had a raise during the Obama administration.
400,000.
What's that?
400,000.
400,000, right? Guys, it's 400,000 and an average partner at a really excellent law firm gets paid $400,000. A good partner who's been there for a while gets paid 2.5 times what the president of the United States makes.
Yeah.
Guys, you got to know what things cost. I want you to know the cost. That's the cost. So yes, so Julian, judges get paid a lot. 108, and I'm not denigrating, guys. $183,000. That's a lot of money. But it's not the money you could get paid. All right. So that's what a judge does, right? Any more questions about judges and their roles generally, Camille?
So you said that judges were like afraid that they would make a mistake. How often does a judge actually make a mistake that they would be
They're
afraid
human.
of?
They're human. There's some. Okay. The humans you've met, Camille, right? You've met many. Are there? Is there a variance in how many mistakes people make? Guess what? This is the hardest thing for people to imagine, right? Judges, because they're people, some of them make a lot of mistakes, some are really bad, and some of them hardly make any because they're really good. Now what happens is over time, because of the number of appeals that will happen, you'll get to see what a good judge is and what a bad judge is. Bad judges are overthrown a lot. Their decisions are overthrown an awful lot. Okay? So that's one of the things that people look at long term, as far as what's a good judge and what's a bad judge. Okay? Any other questions? question about judges? Yeah.
Well, this is just off of the president's salary, but they get paid a pension as soon as they leave the office.
Right, there's a lot, but,
And that's over $200,000
Right.
each year.
Don't make me get into that with partners.
I bet they get some money there too.
Yes, they do, all right? So prosecution, all right? Prosecution and lawyers.
Oh, you gotta do bailiff.
Oh, I'm sorry, whoops, bailiff, there we go. Bailiff. Bailiff, you are there to help the judge do their job. Everything I just told you is what the bailiff has to help the judge do. By the way, the judge has got to know the rules inside out and backwards. The judge has to know both sides of the case equally well. The judge has to know all this stuff, and then he has to know all the rules, and the bailiff's going to help him with all those things. Go ahead.
Is bailiff like the police officer guy sitting right next to the judge?
No, normally a bailiff in a court in Ohio is somebody who's in a suit and tie, who's a and this isn't, I don't want to say clerk, but they're clerk-like in the sense that they are somebody who is administrative. They help the judge's case. So you'll see when we go to Judge Tax Room, you'll see the bailiff will be handing things to the judge. Here's the file. Here's the file. Here's the file.
And we may get to see a Wellington woman in a different courtroom who is a bailiff, so she can come and talk to you.
And then, and again, in our trial, you guys are going to be reminding the judge, Your Honor, you've got to be, here's how much time we've got. Your Honor, here's the witnesses that are coming up. Your Honor, and oh, by the way, you're also kind of I call this a co-judge in our trial. Because you're going to help the judge with something that's really hard for judges to do because judges haven't gone to law school. Our judge has to apply the Ohio Rules of Evidence. The actual rules of evidence. And the bailiff helps. Last year's team, guys, I'm not kidding. I'm just going to say it. I think last year's team was the strongest team we've had, right? Jury and judge and bailiff, would you say, Ms. Robbins?
Yep. Yep.
It was Ben Edwards and Adam Sorrells. They were as good as it gets. And they were good at keeping things on time. They were good at interacting with the people that they had to keep moving. They were good at making decisions. They were good at making correct decisions. Did they get them all right? No. So you just get past that. Do the best you can. Bailiff's fun to be though, because bailiff gets to interact an awful lot more and be more of a person. The judge has to be a little bit of a figurehead and stand up there. Okay? Any questions about bailiff? Bailiff's a fascinating thing to do. Guys, you all know Adam. You know that Adam would not shirk from doing something. Adam took this role and really made it what it really can be. Okay? So that's a good one. I think it's something that some people look past. Anything about the bailiff? All right. Prosecution. Prosecution is the one, of course, who brings the case. They're the ones who have to prove what happened. All right. One of the prosecutor's jobs is first thing the prosecutor has to decide is whether to bring a case or not. There's something called prosecutorial discretion. Guys, not every crime gets tried. Not every crime gets alleged. Not every crime. We don't even talk about every crime. One of the reasons is why. Why isn't every crime brought in front of a trial, or right in front of a judge, or in front of a court? There's a very simple reason for it. Yeah.
Because it might not win.
Not just that. That's one reason.
There's not enough time.
Not enough time. There's not enough resources. There's not enough judges. There's not enough prosecutors. There's just not enough. So prosecutors have to make, the first decision prosecutors usually make is that they decide whether or not there's going to be a case in the first place. They decide with prosecutorial discretion whether we're going to put the state's resources against this person, or whether we're going to put them against this person, whether I negotiate with that person, whether they're going to decide things like that. That's what they're going to do. Okay? And a prosecutor's job, remember, the prosecutor is always presenting the case. The prosecutor has to be able to get the story out. Guys, if you don't allege the proper elements of a crime, guess what happens? If you don't, through your witnesses, allege all the elements of a crime, what happens? In our system, what happens? I'm the prosecutor. I call 4 witnesses over here. Those 4 witnesses don't allege the proper elements of a crime. What happens now? The defense stands up and says, Your Honor, I move to dismiss. Why? Well, they didn't name XYZ elements. There's no evidence for those. Guess what happens to the case, guys? Gone. Out. So a prosecutor's job is hard because prosecutors have to use the state's resources wisely, but they also have to be very thorough in what they do. Prosecution is a difficult job to do. Okay? Anything else you want on that, Ms. Robbins, for prosecutors?
Nope.
Okay.
Yes, what they're gonna write. Remember you do the P and the D and the triangle thing.
Oh, okay.
They're shorthand.
Yeah. Here we go. All right. Guys, in every case, civil or criminal, it's a P versus a D. All right. In a criminal case, it's prosecution versus defense. Okay. It's prosecution. Prosecution is different than over on the civil side. You have plaintiff versus the defendant. You'll notice I'm using delta as a defendant, and over here, pi is typically the plaintiff or prosecutor. Okay? That way you don't have to write the words out. Is that what you want me to tell Ms. Robbins?
Yep. That way when he starts writing it, you'll know what he's doing instead of explaining.
D versus D. All right? Plaintiff versus defendant. Now, so over here we got, prosecution. Boom, boom. Got the defendant. Boom, boom. Okay? And a little delta. Now, defense, you met a defense lawyer. One of the other reasons I like having Colin Peters comes in is because, you know what, guys? Criminal defense lawyers, okay, let me ask you this. Tell me what you thought. Tell me what you thought you'd meet. What did you think you'd meet? And be honest. You can be honest. This is us, right? Yeah.
Somebody really mean, serious.
Okay, mean and serious?
Like, not a lot of emotion, but nice.
A non-person almost, right? Okay?
Yeah, kind of just a jerk.
It's a jerk, right? Do you think he's a jerk?
No.
His mom and dad own a farm. He's a farmer.
He is a farmer.
Look at that.
He's a farmer. Okay? So, here's why Colin's a really good defense lawyer. Number one, again, he's represented friends of mine. Number one, the guy's good at his job. When I called him to help me out with a friend of mine, it was at midnight. Colin talked to me for 2 hours. And then he got on the phone with my friend for another 2. And then he got up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go do the job that he was supposed to go do. That's what a defense lawyer's like. That's what Colin's like. You've got to be a good person because really, he's got to find out, guys, what's going on with this person. So it's got to be somebody he can talk to, all right? The defense lawyer also has got to be willing, you met him, he's got to be willing to say things that other people don't want said. He's got to be willing to take somebody that other people don't like and say, you know what, this person deserves a defense and here's why. Not because they're a good person, but because the facts don't show that they did it. Here's the hard part of this. I think you have to be genuine to a certain degree to get a jury to believe you. And the hard part of this is that if you're not like Colin, people see it. Jurors see it. Guys, you've been in classrooms before, right? Can you tell when a teacher gives a darn or not?
Yeah.
Yes. Sure can. Guess what? So can juries. And the defense lawyer has to truly believe what they're doing. You guys saw it, you made your comments today. Boy, he actually believed it, didn't he? Do you think he sleeps horribly at night, knowing what he does?
No.
It's not because he has no soul, it's because he thinks what he's doing is right. That's the point I want to make. Prosecutors and defense lawyers both think they're right. Defense lawyers get to do here's what defense lawyers are going to do, especially in a criminal trial. This is the one thing defense lawyers are going to do. That's why I like being a defense lawyer. I was a civil defense lawyer. You know what we get to do? Does anybody like point out mistakes? Who's a mistake pointer out? Guess what defense lawyers are going to do? You didn't prove this. Oh, you didn't prove that. Oh, you didn't do this. Oh, you didn't do that. You'll notice that they're not doing anything at the time. They're just saying, you didn't do that. That's what defense. So they have to be people who recognize detail. Both prosecution and defense have to be hard workers. Both prosecution and defense have to be well organized. I think the defense gets to be a little bit more dramatic. Do you agree, Ms. Robbins?
Yep.
Defense gets to be a little more dramatic because they're defending a person's life. Excuse me, sorry about that. They're defending a person's life. So they get to be a little bit more over the top. Okay? Both these require work, which is why we have multiple lawyer teams. You're not alone.
Yeah. We'll have, let's see, how
Not
big
alone.
is this class? 18, 16,
60.
We'll have 3 or 4 at least.
Right.
At least 4.
Okay. Now, any questions about being a defense lawyer? Again, I think the hard part about being a prosecutor is you have to mention everything and you have to get it all right. The hard part about being a defense lawyer is you have to find the problems.
You got to really pay attention when the prosecution is presenting its case, because you have to hear what they're saying in order to go, yeah, no, that part's not right, or here's how I could spin this in a different way.
Right. And you have to, guys, this is why I love trial. Colin said the same thing I've done.
Yeah.
I love trial. Oh my God, guys, if I got in trial more often, you would have never met me. Joe's like, woo! But you guys would have never met me. Here's why. Trials, oh my God, trials are a rush. Ugh. I never did drugs, but just imagine what I think about my life. Okay? That's what I imagine that they're like, okay? I never did them. Whoa! If drugs are anything like
Can
this.
all of you right now just imagine Mr. Hanson on drugs? I mean, that never is, right?
I never did them, but boy, if they're anything like this, I can totally get behind them, right? So here's the thing. Guys, in a trial, it is combat, it is negotiation, you are thinking totally, and I told her this, I've told you this all the time. Guys, I left every day of trial I ever had smiling like this because I want the judge and the jury to see me because I'm a nice guy. How am I? Like, hey, how you doing, man? Good to see you. How are you doing? You all right? Hey, what's up? You know, and then I get home. I actually didn't go home. When you have trial days, you actually go back to your office because you're usually there until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night because you got more to do. I had a headache every single time I went to trial because I was thinking about so much at once and all the time, and it was great. It was great. Now, witnesses. Witnesses, you're going to get to, this is what we're ever, I hate to hear this. I'm just a witness. I'm just a witness. Yeah, you're just the one who determines whether the evidence comes in or not. That's all. Guys, if you don't do your job, witnesses, there's no trial. There's nothing. And Ms. Robbins and I will not protect poorly prepared lawyers. If the lawyers don't get the witnesses ready well enough, and there's no elements proven, and the defense stands up.
Which happened one year.
Which happened one year. The judge wrote to us and said, I don't think they have this element. What do you think? I said, well, go through your evidence. What do you have? He said, nothing. And I went, what's your decision? I don't tell people what to do, guys. But I'll ask them the question. What's your decision?
That the defense did not present any piece of evidence. And we had another year where we had a witness who never got called, who got an A+ for the trial, who did not say a word. Not one word.
Nothing.
She sat in that corner, in a chair, waiting to be called, never got called. But the reason she got an A+ was not because she shut up the entire time. It was because when we were done with class and outside class and talking about stuff, she was right there talking about it and saying, if I was this lawyer, I would have done this and this, and how come they didn't do this? She was involved in that way.
We also saw her getting prepared by her lawyers.
Yep.
We also saw her actively saying, no, I don't know that.
Right.
She had to ask the questions. This happens all the time. Lawyers say, so you saw that? No, I didn't see that. She knew her
She knew
role.
the text.
Witnesses are hard because you have to play a role. It's kind of fun.
So the prosecution and the defense are going to have like a team of like witnesses they're going to choose from?
Yep.
That's how it's going to work?
Yeah, and in
Right
our
here in this
case,
class.
because we have a limited amount of people in the book, right? You're gonna look at the people who are in that novel, but you can also call expert witnesses.
Yes, we
So
had Immanuel Kant testify one year.
Yeah, you can bring him back from the
Immanuel
dead.
Kant is
It's okay.
dead. He's been dead for hundreds of years, but Immanuel Kant testified in the form of Mr. Brisk's son,
Yeah.
Ben Brisk.
Yeah.
Immanuel
He was
Kant.
good too. He
Because
was
we had a
good.
question about treason, and so we were talking about government and what government was and when it existed and when it didn't. So Immanuel Kant came in to talk about that.
Because they had to prove that what was happening on the island was a form of government. So they brought him in to prove that. We've had people who are psychologists.
Oh yes, we had expert witnesses, and we'll talk about expert. Well, you have to be an expert to have.
And when you do that, the team will say, this is the witness who we want to call. And you'll look up a psychologist online, figure out like what's their background, what do they know.
You get to create somebody.
You get a creative person.
So you can go to Harvard
Yeah.
for undergrad, and then a real school, Cornell, for your graduate degree. And then if you had to go to law school, you can go to real law school like George Washington. You can do that, all right? So, but you get a creative person. That's kind of fun. So, and witness is where you get to really act. Andrew Davis was awesome.
Yes.
Andrew Davis was an awesome witness because Andrew Davis is an awesome actor. But yes, Todd, we're going to pick from one. And if you get called for one, Todd, you can get called by the other. It's not like we're going to let you, slant the field. You're going to be the same witness, and you can get called by both sides. Okay?
In rare cases, you might have to play two different witnesses, depending on how many people we have.
Sometimes we have to have the witnesses turn over to be another witness, just to make it work out.
You'd have to prepare two witness statements.
Any questions about witnessing? What's that?
Yes.
Play
play
for
characters
most
in
part,
the book.
play characters in the book, but there can be experts who are not in the book.
Right.
Who we think could be testifying about things that are referenced.
We had a zoologist one time too.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We had a
Yeah, we
zoologist.
had a zoologist.
Zoologist.
About the conditions of like animals that were on the island and what the kids would have been eating, and yeah, it was pretty cool.
Well, because there's some scenes in there about pigs and stuff like that.
Oh, I
So we only have about 30
Come on,
seconds
favorite
of that.
of it.
We didn't get to juries today, but we're going to talk about juries next week. And you need to make sure that on Monday you bring that typed sheet that says, here are my top 3 roles, and here's the explanation for why I want that number 1 choice role. Okay?
And if you want to talk to me, guys, in the hallways or whatever, come see me, right? And we'll get some additional, or Ms. Robbins too. We'll get some additional info if you have questions. Because as you can tell me, you can tell guys, I'm not a teacher because I hated the law. I loved the law. I just didn't love it enough. So I love talking about it. It's awesome.